Hello and welcome to the webinar, everyone. This is the eSkill webinar, How to Standardize Your Recruiting Process Globally, presented by 2023 Talent Impact Leader Elaine Coffman from Majorel. We're excited to have you with us. Please put your questions during the webinar into the chat and Elaine will be happy to answer them at the end of the presentation. So thanks again for joining the webinar. Have you struggled to standardize your recruiting process across multiple locations, even globally? Elaine's going to talk about how she's done that very successfully. If you've experienced challenges getting teams to buy into a standardized recruiting process or experienced all the things that go with different languages and different processes in different countries, you're going to benefit from this webinar. Elaine will share Majorel's journey to improve and accelerate their recruiting effectiveness and overall candidate experience. She's got an inspiring and fascinating story, and I'm excited for you to hear it. Elaine is incredible. She's got more than 30 years of human resources management experience, including 22 years in the BPO environment. Before joining Majorel in October of 2014, she was VP of HR for Advanced Call Center Technologies, headquartered in Berwyn, Pennsylvania. Prior to that, she served as Vice President of Global Training and Development for iCor. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Elaine, and thank you so much for being with us today.
You are more than welcome, and thank you everyone for joining today, and I hope I'm able to give you some insight into the way we kind of use and moved into a standardized recruiting process. A little bit about Majorel, because most people don't really know what a business process outsourcer is. So what we do is we service mostly Fortune, I'd say 50 companies, most of American-based companies, that, and we do their customer service or their back-end office work. But that also includes things like we're very big in content mediation, so we work on making the world safe for the internet, where we actually watch the videos, the different social media channels that are out there, and we evaluate the information to determine if it's appropriate or inappropriate for the internet and the audiences served. We do a lot of things around typical contact center. We do no telecommunication, but mostly high tech and insurance and insurance banking and high-tech industries. So we're servicing the majority of our customers are Fortune 50 customers, and we have a very large clientele, probably over 150 customers. So we have more than 31 countries across 5 continents and more than 63,000 people, and we are able to deliver our services in 60 different languages. We're split up into regions. The region that I oversee is known as the Global English Marketing Region, and so I have 14 countries that I'm responsible for. And so a little bit about how we started. This industry is an industry of acquisition and merger. And in fact, in full disclosure, we're in the process of being acquired by one of our competitors, and that should happen by the end of the year. But it's been the journey of the BPO industry since the early 80s, where in order to be competitive, you have to be able to be big and very effective and very efficient, and you have to offer services at a lower price than what the client that you're servicing can offer them in order to make it a value proposition for them to outsource their business. So I think it's important that we talk a little bit about that, because how we went forward in our industry and where we got to where we are today, I think is really the story of how, as you grow and you evolve through time, how you have to change who you are as an organization to service those clients that you're servicing. So when I joined in 2014, the reality was we were an entrepreneurial small company, and we were large across the region, but our U.S. footprint was very small. And when I joined, I took on the U.S., Canada, Mexico, so the North American market, and the Philippines. And sometimes I joke and I say we were entrepreneurial, and I think sometimes that was just another word for chaos, because the way our organization grew was people came who had very big entrepreneurial spirits, and you were able to do whatever you wanted to do as long as you were growing the business. So it was a huge impact on just growing the business, tremendous growth, getting more customers and clients and growing bigger. So the fallacy in that was there were no standard processes and procedures. They were very, very limited. In fact, when I joined as VP of HR, my position had never existed for this part of the entity. We were owned by Bertelsmann, a very large company, and there were human resources and all the typical functions of an organization under Bertelsmann, but we were then Arvado under that section. It was still very country specific, and people could do whatever they really needed to do to make it work. Well, as we started expanding and growing, that wasn't a recipe for success. We had a very sophisticated customer base that required that we validated our processes and procedures, but more than that, they were outsourcing their clients, their customers to us, and we were serving their customers. And their expectation is that when we service their customers believe that we're not Majorel, we are whatever client we happen to be servicing. So one of the ones I could say that we serviced that allows us to use their name is like Netflix. So when somebody calls, they think they're speaking with Netflix. In the culture and what our people bring to the table have to be what that client would want it to be. So when you think about that, cultural fit, organizational fit is very important, but you had to be able to select employees who could and wanted to buy into that culture of both your culture and that client's culture. So it's difficult when you're trying to select people to meet both of those requirements. Also, we go across all time zones. We'll service the same client in several countries. So for example, I might be serving customer X in North America, and then in the Philippines, and maybe in Europe. So we're hiring the same exact candidate, the same exact profile in all these countries, but we had no way of really saying that profile was the same. And the quality of person that you were going to get in the US is the same quality of person that we were going to give you in the Philippines. So it was really important that we came up with some kind of a standardized basis for selecting people. As part of that, we developed, so I took the recruiting function, and instead of having it report into each of the countries, we had a standardized report into me. There was a recruiting lead in each country that reported into me directly, and we developed standardized recruiter screening templates so that when they contacted the candidate up front, they could standardize, everybody asked the same questions and look for the same type of profile, and standardized behavior-based assessments for the hiring manager to do their interview with. So they had to use the behavior-based interview process, and we began training people. Well, that was well and good, but it was still very objective. So what we really needed to do is to figure out, how do we assess people? How do we give them an assessment that says that, while the recruiters are looking for skill, can they do the job? We can take that burden off of the hiring manager, who really only should be interviewing for fit. Will they do the job in this environment working for me? So how do we make this process work so that we're taking the skill assessment and the skill requirement out of that hiring manager's responsibility? So we needed to look at assessments, and we need to figure out how we could do this effectively, taking into consideration the cultural differences between the people in different countries, as well as the difference in our client base. We had many, many different clients, and they each had very specific profiles. So at the end of the day, we knew we were behind the industry in recruiting standardization. And we really needed to get there. So the problem was that the industry required competency validation. So it wasn't just enough for me to say, yes, they have the skills required. We needed to validate that someplace. We needed to do validation measurements. We had to figure out a test that could do that. We went out and we looked at several assessments, priced assessments, and came back to say, what is the one that we could use, given that I didn't have a lot of skilled OD people either who could develop a lot of these tests? What could we use that we could get off the shelf, but then we could also modify to meet our needs? And this became even more important because in our industry, we're regulated by what's called the COPC, which is a standard that says that everything you do has to prove that it's validated, that you've root caused it. If you're having attrition and turnover or other things, you need to go back to your assessment things to say what part of the assessment isn't working, and you have to do a lot of root cause analysis. So needing to do that, we also needed a tool that had really robust reporting capabilities so that we could pull the results of the test, we could put them together, and we could figure out whether or not we really and truly were hiring and looking for and placing the right candidates. So initially, like I said, we had the US, we had Canada, Mexico, and the Philippines. And we had language requirements. So we started out just needing English, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. However, in these languages, they also needed to be low at a CFR level. So it wasn't just enough that they could speak, but they had to speak near native languages. So we had a lot of things that were going on in the background, and we needed to figure out how could we get a tool to assess it and to prove to our clients that the quality that they were expecting across the globe would be the same, and we were delivering on their expectations. And we needed it wasn't just at the entry-level agent level. They needed to have these customer service language skills, multitasking, computer basic skills, typing skills, verbal and conceptual reasoning skills, their ability to look at mathematical problems and draw conclusions, as well as to be able to read at a pretty high level, and then conceptually be able to speak with a customer, to be able to work through their problems that they might have. And some of our positions were pretty high level, like resource coordination. So did they have those skills? And to try to find a tool that could quickly assess those and to give us all these things that in an economical fashion was very difficult. So what we did is we looked at everything, and eventually we partnered with eSkill and deployed it across the 4 countries. Now, the beauty of eSkill is they are standardized tests. So based on both the job as well as like competency. So you can go in and you can pull these standardized tests, you can put them together, and you can say, well, does this work for us? But we needed more than that, because some of our clients, we had specific tests that we needed to give. So they may say, we want you to give them this math test. So we then also bought the eSkill editor, where we quickly learned how to put the different tests in there, and then we could combine those tests with the standardized off-the-shelf tests to really modify them and scale them to be exactly what we wanted. Then we gave those tests to our top performers, and to determine the cut scores on them. And then we determined the cut scores not just by the test level, but by different competency levels within the tests, so that we had a really quick way of doing it. And the beauty of it was that by putting all these tests, even in the eSkill editor and combining with the standardized tests, we had the ability to grade them. It was graded by the system, and then the recruiter, once they sent the link to the employee to give them the test, they immediately got the results back. So after their pre-screen, they could get the person to test, and then they could get it back, and they could say, oh yeah, they passed the test, and now they could go on to the hiring manager interview. So we were able to shorten the recruitment cycle and to make it much more the candidate experience was really good, as well as the recruiter experience, because now they weren't frustrated with trying to get the results back, trying to get them graded, and then trying to talk to the candidate. Which most of you know, if you're in recruiting, if you have more than a couple-hour delay in your recruiting process, you start losing candidates. So you needed to do something that worked pretty quickly and efficiently. And as time went on, we were able to develop even more and more sophisticated tests. So I mentioned earlier that we do content mediation. Well, in content mediation, what happens is the employee is looking at very fast, like second videos, and they need to be able to look at those videos and rapidly draw conclusions about what's going on there and determine, in accordance with the policies that are set up, if that video is appropriate for the internet. And so that takes a pretty high level skill. So we needed to develop a social media test that was able to replicate that. And we worked directly with the eSkill and came up with a very, very robust testing mechanism that embeds all the videos that people can look at that, and it's very much like a realistic job preview. So as we learned to do things, we were able to develop realistic job previews that the candidate could take during the testing process that told us whether or not they had some of the very basic competencies to do the job. Or in some cases, what do we need to train them on? So maybe we wouldn't disqualify them for how they did in the test, but perhaps that would tell us to tell the trainer when they went into the training program where they needed to train. And then it was even bigger than that, because when we started looking at our support positions, our trainers, our supervisors, our managers, our quality coaches, those level of jobs, we also were able to build tests that were standardized on eSkill platform that we could also then take and configure into what we would need them to be. And we could start giving tests for promotional opportunities and for training opportunities as we developed our OD. So we were able to take what we got out of eSkill and determine how we could grow to a much higher level. This was very, early on we said we need to get the hiring managers to buy into what we were doing. Remember that they were used to just hiring whoever they wanted. All of a sudden we were taking that away from them, and we were saying recruiting will take care of skill and competency. We want you, hiring manager, to hire for fit, because people leave bosses, not companies. So you need to pick your team members based on whether you think they will work for you in your environment and they will be able to be coached and developed. And we want you to use these behavioral-based questions only and not worry about skill and competency. This is a pretty hard thing to sell to a group of people who never had it before. So we had to prove this to them. So as we started using the testing for their support positions, and they started seeing the value of what was coming, because then it was easier for them to just worry about fit, and they developed a level of comfort knowing that we were going to be able to screen out those people that were not successful and hire those people that we thought could be successful. Then the pandemic hit, and we had to move forward into home testing, right? So kind of like, all right, we were making them come on site to test. Now they can't come on site anymore. But with eSkill, you can just send a link and people can take it. Now they can take it if you don't have typing, things like that. They could take on a phone or mobile device, but we had typing tests and things like that in there. So they had to take them on a computer. They'd take them on a PC, but they could test at home. And again, we could instantly get the results. And there is a validation piece inside eSkill that says, is this a person really taking the test? Where they do a validation, they take pictures of them. And of course, now we're across many countries. By the time this started, I was into like 7 and 8 countries, and you had data privacy rules that had to exist. But eSkill was equipped to manage the data privacy pieces of what they could do to validate the person's true identity and to prove during the test that they were the ones taking the test. So we had the assurance that there was no cheating going on, that they could take it at home, we could get the results back, and we continue with our literally virtual hiring process, and we never missed a beat. In fact, during the pandemic, we grew over 50% in size, and we're able to do it all with not missing any recruiting pieces and fill the requirements. And for an idea on volume, in 2022, we hired over 10,000 employees. So just at the customer service agent level throughout the countries I support. And those 10,000 employees all went through eSkill testing, all did the same exact things I'm telling you about here. So the scalability and the effectiveness and the efficiency was amazing as we did this. In our accuracy, we were able the robust reporting requirements and the way eSkill keeps them. You can go back for years and pull your results and pull things. We get audited all the time, and we need that ability to be able to show and prove that what we said we did, and that the person actually took the test, and that here were their results. So we got company buy-in and client buy-in. What was interesting is as time went on, because I would serve in my region the same clients that somebody else might serve in another region, and they weren't using this testing, what happened was the other regions, the clients would say, we want you to use what they're using in this region, the platform of testing they use, we want you to use that because we believe in it, we know that it's effective and efficient and accurate. So we were really able to, I think eSkill, our volume, it's astronomical what we use today, but we're using it across probably 15 countries right now in several different languages. So the other thing that was great about it is as we move forward, we can tweak things, we can add things, we can take things away, but we have the ability to make the testing fit whatever our changing needs are. So today, like I said, we're using eSkill in 15 countries. in 11 languages. Another thing that eSkill was fabulous about helping us with was we had to, so I have like Taiwanese, Japanese, Chinese, different Chinese, Urdu, Pakistani, Hindi, several languages. And it's like, even ones that you think Swahili, very different languages. And we needed to give the testing in their native languages. So I couldn't rewrite the testing, and I didn't feel comfortable having people in my organization rewrite them because I needed to make sure they were 100% correct. So we contacted eSkill, and they were able to contact someone, and it was extremely affordable. They started rewriting our tests in all those languages. They could do most tests inside of a week's time, and they were able to translate to all the languages that we needed, 11 different languages, the different testing that we needed to have, so that the employees would be taking them in their languages, which further helped verify and validate their ability to make decisions in their native language. So, and I would say that the thing about eSkill is every time I would reach out to them, so we had a different need and we needed help, they were immediately able to help me, and were, I will say, so accommodating. It was amazing. So the video tests, the realistic job previews, the rewriting of our assessment tools into several different languages was extremely valuable. And the scalability, the fact that I could take this and launch it across 15 countries and tens of thousands of people taking the test was very, very valuable to us. And candidates, we very rarely ever have candidate complaints. So the candidates can easily get into it. They can easily take the test. You can limit it so that once they start, they can't take it again, or you can give them the opportunity to take it once or twice. That's your call. You set all that up in your testing platform. So it's really, and the candidates, I've never get complaints about it. The candidates get through it relatively quickly, and have not had any trouble with connectivity or anything like that. I told the reporting system is robust and it's easy for data validation purposes as well as auditing purposes. It's been very affordable for us. And during this process, I'm going through this, we were not COP certified, but thanks to the assessment testing and things we were able to do, we were able to get certified by proving that our employees all had the requisite skill levels to perform the jobs, and we could prove that through the validation of the assessments themselves. So that's kind of our story. I would say that I'm a huge fan of eSkill, but I'm a huge fan because I've seen it grow the organization. When I started, I had maybe 3,000 employees. Today, I'm responsible for 23,000 employees, and this tool grew with me from my 3,000 level to my 23,000 level, and has been launched across the 61,000 people in our company as an assessment tool that's well validated and that really works. So I think, Sheila, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Elaine. That was really powerful stuff. Thanks so much for sharing. For those of you on the webinar, please put your questions into the chat in the little module there with GoToWebinar, and we will pass those over to Elaine. Elaine, we have a few questions that actually came in before the webinar. Can you talk a little bit about something that you mentioned early on, which is you had different recruiting teams in different countries, and each of them kind of wanted to do their own thing, but that change management of getting their buy-in was a challenge. How did you handle that?
Well, I think a couple things. First thing is that I actually, and Sheila knows, I traveled extensively. So I sat down with them, and some of their clients, and we talked about what was painful for them. So, without pain, people tend not wanted to change, right? So we sat down, and what was happening is that they would be questioned and put on the spot about why they thought this was working or how they selected somebody. And they had no objective way of saying this. And the client had, our external clients had no level of comfort that our recruiters actually knew what they were doing. So they were continually being questioned, and we were audited, like I said, and we have to do like quarterly presentations to our clients. And operations team also felt pain because when things weren't working and you had high turnover, people falling out of training classes and attrition was astronomical, how do you stop that and how do you change that and how do you get out of that continual rotation, like, churn? It was just continual churn. You're churning the same people in the first 90 days because you're not hiring for success. When we talked about a lot of that and we tried it, we piloted it in small groups. So we didn't just take it out everywhere. We piloted one, particular, the most difficult client, actually. We piloted it there. We took some of their assessments, we put them inside the tool. And when people started seeing the ease of using the tool and the reliability and the accuracy, and we started seeing things like attrition get more under control, and we were selecting out people who couldn't be successful. When they started seeing that and they were able to answer questions with facts and data, it became easier to sell. So it really was, in the beginning, it was really about finding where the pain points were and then addressing those pain points by giving them a tool that could help them eliminate that pain. And I think whenever you do change, you got to figure out what's not working and why it's not working, because absent that, there's no reason to change. So it was giving them that reason and then selling them on that. And then as people became more comfortable and they saw that the clients were happy, our internal stakeholders were happier. Once they started seeing that, then we were able to much easier launch it and take it across. And then it became a buy-in and it became a mandate that we needed to have the standardized recruitment process.
Thank you, Elaine. I think that's so powerful, because getting people on board with a software platform can sometimes be a challenge, but the benefits of this and the way that you were able to communicate that with eSkills Help has been really valuable. If there are just one or two of the features of eSkills platform that you'd particularly like to highlight as it relates to standardizing a recruiting process, what one or two features would you mention are most important?
Well, I think two things. I think that the standardized tests within eSkill are very, very good. So you can pull them out and with a pretty good level of confidence in them that the reality is that the test is going to be, you can validate it. So you can go through and you can find those kinds of those tests, the jobs or the characteristics that you really need, and you can put them together. And by doing that, you're able to and then the eSkill editor, you can bring in some of the things that you want yourselves and put it together. So by making a combination of the standardized test, the standardized competencies, and then the eSkill editor, I think that feature is huge. Another thing that eSkill came out with that we added, that you have behavior-based resiliency tests. So we're required, because we do content mediation and people see things on the internet that could be very disturbing, because of course, you see what's out there. So you see a lot of very disturbing content. So we needed to assess our employees as to their resiliency. So their ability, so that when we put them in this job, we wouldn't be doing something that could be psychologically concerning or damaging to them. So eSkill actually came up with a behavioral-based assessment test that we worked with our psychologist as well as eSkill to develop a tool that was using largely parts of that that behavioral-based test that eSkill has to put together a resiliency assessment that is used now across the globe to determine the resiliency and the ability to people to work in this kind of environment. So I was never great in a personality-based test, but I will tell you that the resiliency test that they have inside of eSkill is very, very good. There's several questions. You can scale it down to what you want, but you're able to make a determination based on the real factors and competency this person needs to have to determine the predictability that they'll be able to handle the content that's there. And it's been very, very successful for us. So that was those two things have been really important. And one of the things I want to do further is to kind of take that same assessment and to grow it into what you might be doing as a attrition reduction tool to determine if there's any factors that determine loyalty and long-term longevity with the company. So I think there's a lot of things inside eSkill. There's so many things that you can do that I would say that we're not doing yet, but so many uses of it that makes it really, really intriguing to continue on with them. And you guys are always coming up with something new. That's the other thing. And if you make it, if there's something you need and you ask for it, then eSkill will look around to see if there's enough of a need to be able to try to develop it for you. So those things, I think, make it, those factors make it really intriguing and useful to us.
Thank you, Elaine. The information you shared has been amazing. We really appreciate the partnership with you and Majorel. It's been great to see it grow over the years and all around the globe. We just really thank you today for being a part of this webinar. For those of you attending, if you'd like to find out more about eSkill's platform, you can go to eskill.com and request a demo and even get a demo same day. Thank you for joining. We're out of time. Hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you all.